Black people make up between 1.2 and 1.7% of the population living in Utah. Now, if my calculations are correct, I'm not rich and obviously not white, but that does make me a proud 1%er. I'm sure this statistic comes as no surprise to anyone, but it might surprise you just how much it impacts the community economically, socially, and emotionally. One of the many things we've seen in 2020 is that it is a tug of war, a struggle between one side that is clinging to the economic and racial silos of the past, while the other is grasping, even demanding a future that upholds America's economic and social promise that all men and women, all people, are created equal. Thank you. Neither side can imagine that pulling in the same direction will resolve the struggle. Utah is not just in America. It is a microcosm of America right now. Even I'm surprised that I live here. I'm a Southern fried homeboy from Texas and Mississippi, and I learned to uphold the proud legacy of Southern black culture by standing tall and keeping my pants up with a Bible belt. Aside from learning that Salt Lake City was the capital and Michael Jordan was the mortal enemy of the basketball team, Utah meant absolutely nothing to me growing up. My parents would have been less surprised if I had moved to, I don't know, a colony on Mars. When I told them that I had met some new friends from Utah and they were really cool, their response was, "What? They kicked all the black people out of Utah 100 years ago." Now, true or not, myths like this circulated commonly about Utah among African Americans in the 90s. And decades later, the stereotypes continue. Comedian Ari Spears even sells T-shirts proclaiming Utah as white people's Africa. Now, stereotypes like this cost more than a community's reputation. The lower percentage of blacks and other ethnic groups cost the state millions of dollars in annual revenue and billions in the long run. And here's one way this happens. When successful global companies expand, they search for new regions to build offices. In the past, local metrics like tax incentives, cost of living versus median income, and local university access were key factors in determining where to build. CFOs were leading the conversation. But now, companies value diversity and inclusion because they understand how much those improve the bottom line. HR officers are now at the front of the table, and the accountants are in the back because companies have done the research and learned that a diverse office makes an average of 20% more revenue than a non-diversified office. So when a company looks at an area where diversity seemingly has no apparent value, what they really see are major problems in sustaining a diverse pool of top talent. And so they go elsewhere, taking with them multi-million-dollar construction projects, hundreds and thousands of jobs. In a year where we have wrestled over whether Black Lives Matter, the answer from the marketplace is a resounding yes. But Americans have an affinity for stereotypes. They are ever present in our social interactions and our entertainment. People simply enjoy stereotyping each other by race and region. But the truth is, if you count blacks, Hispanics, Pacific Islanders, and other ethnic groups, Utah has a 30% diversified population, and that's not too bad. But if we don't promote, champion, and incorporate these communities into our narrative, then negative assumptions form quickly. Well, there's nothing but a bunch of white Mormons over there. False. The Jewish man who invented chemotherapy lived in Utah. I was here well over a decade before hearing about that. So we're not sharing this and other diverse stories loudly enough. Consequently, everyone thinks, well, they must be racist over there because it's not a very diverse place. Sounds offensive and judgmental, but it's not a big leap to take. People do it all the time. And it's not just a regional problem, it affects our country. Think about it. Based upon America's past and present race relations, people around the world define American culture as inherently racist. Here are some problems with that current public image. First, convention business and tourism suffers. If people aren't traveling here or coming to attend conventions, then limited dollars are coming into the state. And fewer people are out there saying, oh man, it was great. Utah was way cooler than we thought. You should go there sometime. Second, without exposure to local diversity, children are unprepared to navigate in today's culture. Once they enter college and the workforce, they often make uneducated and unacceptable comments. This significantly hinders their success in a diverse environment. Third, ultimately, and most importantly, we lose the chance to learn from each other, to grow closer together, and to share experiences that increase our joy in life. So, how should we solve these problems and change the narrative of our state and our country? Well, first, we should stop using the word minority to describe non-white groups. This word means more than a lower proportion in numbers. It labels people as less important and less valuable. But why did two multinational corporations recently build offices in Atlanta instead of Utah? Utah had all the positive economic indicators. It was closer to their home offices in California. But those priorities were overshadowed by demographics. The absence of so-called minorities was the major determining factor. So it's absolutely critical that we tell the success stories from our diverse communities. If we don't tell the world, then no one will know. And the stereotypes will continue to cause damage. So, now we understand how a community suffers economically and socially when lacking diversity as a priority. But what's the emotional toll? One of the many things we've seen in 2020 is how unchecked racial tension escalates. Property and families are destroyed, politicians are threatened, authorities condemn grief-stricken protesters, and trust disintegrates amidst callous suppression. Emotionally, systemic racism affects white people as well as people of color. Where is the freedom of speech when white allies can't speak up against discrimination and violence for fear of job loss, physical harm, or retribution? We lose important voices that can help heal these social diseases. And police officers are retiring en masse. Who wants to carry the burden of guilt resting upon their shoulders these days? People are dying. We can elect new politicians. We can repair those broken windows. We can reform a passing judgment. But a person's life is irreplaceable. This is the toll we're paying as a human race. We're valuing politics over human life. It's a price we cannot afford to pay. It's a price we refused to pay that created the foundation of the United States. So what should we do? Well, policymakers must create programs that support people of color and women economically, socially, and emotionally. This could be incentives for companies that diversify their workforce, or building business incubators and mentorship programs specifically targeted toward diverse entrepreneurs and business owners. Civic leaders must reach out to community leaders and invite them to help shape legislation. Corporations must mandate substantial inclusion training and provide sustained community outreach programs to expose diverse students to available careers. Corporate and government leaders must fund and support creative initiatives and media showcasing unity and diverse success stories in our organizations and communities. This is how we can regain control of our local and national narrative. We can retrain ourselves to stop thinking in terms of majority and minority, valuable and insignificant. As local and national audiences see these success stories on TV, radio, and other media, then we begin to rebuild our identity and our whole value system for permanent success. By taking responsible action, we can ensure that diverse communities feel valued and respected. And then they will become our most vocal evangelists, telling the world this new story of unity in our communities. Fighting discrimination is more than a social trend. It's a movement to destroy this glass ceiling that is nailing down everybody's potential. By celebrating and showcasing, well, actually, Utah's situation here it's just a part of America's problem. A problem that must be solved before our children lose all hope for a bright and colorful future. A future where we, the people, can capture the elusive promise of America. By celebrating and showcasing our diversity as a pillar of our community values, we can capture more than the truth that we are created equal. We can live, we can earn, we can learn, we can love, and we can all matter as equals. Thank you.